today. So we're going to talk a bit more about socio-economic indicators. We talked about it last week, and here is a quick refresher. So social economic indicator or ECIs are a bit more tricky than KPIs. They are usually more qualitative and therefore more difficult to measure and assign any value. In general, research infrastructure enables high quality research outcomes that in turn have an impact on the broader socio-economic factors. So SEIs are a powerful way to demonstrate value to key stakeholders, including institutions, funders, and governments. In the GBI recommendation, SEIs are broken down into 4 categories: 1 on resources, 2 highly qualified personnel, 3 collaboration and innovation, and 4 public visibility. Resources including things like data sharing, standards and quality control, educational resources, and public policies. HQP SEIs are linked to public education led by the platform, professional development and future employment of the platform scientists, and training of platform users with skills that can use in their future careers. Collaboration and innovation with industry partners and production of intellectual property. And finally, public visibility in the media through news interviews, published articles about the platform, and presence on social media platforms, and maybe podcasts. So as with the KPIs, each ACI is defined. Examples of how to measure them are provided, and each indicator is color-coded for difficulty in collecting data and measuring. So for example, for imaging scientists, it may be easy to count how many users they have trained and their career progression and future job opportunities. However, it might be more difficult to measure professional development. Things like professional development and other ACIs are often best conveyed with stories, which we will do today. This will be our focus.
So we'll talk a bit now just about telling your stories, and we have a few nice examples that are out there that should be of interest, I think, to the community. So the first example is the Imaging Scientist Project on the next slide. And this was something that was done with UK Bioimaging and the Royal Microscopy Society. And they did a really nice job putting this website together, and I really encourage you to go take a look. What they've done is put together interviews of many, many different people who work in imaging facilities and different roles, and asking the question, what is an imaging scientist, and what do you do in your facility? So I think it's a great place to gain ideas yourselves, as well as sending your stakeholders so they can have a better understanding of what imaging scientists do in the community. And I also just want to say that the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative giving the Imaging Scientist Awards, I think, has really given this term more common use in the community, and really describes the role much better than other terms like facility staff. So we'll go to the next slide. So this is another example from the International Society for Advancement of Cytometry, or ISAC, and they have been highlighting flow cytometry platform scientists for a long time. And they give awards in 3 areas: innovation, the young generation, and emerging leaders. And they also have a journal dedicated to the field that promotes not only good science, but it's very methods oriented in the articles, and it's well referenced worldwide. And finally, they've developed a Cyto University where modules and webinars are posted, and a lot of those are scientific platform leaders in the field who are contributing and putting that content up. Next slide. So another nice example is the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative has a website called Stories, the CZI blog, and I've just highlighted one here of 2 scientists who are working on research into rare neurodegenerative diseases and their impact on children. And the links here if you want to read more about this story. And again, it will give you some ideas of how you can promote your own facilities and your own projects. And this is something we see is quite regularly done by universities and by research labs, but maybe not as common an approach for imaging scientists and imaging facilities. So we really need to increase our advocacy for our own community. The next slide. So one other thing I wanted to point out to kind of also give you an idea of how to promote your facility and perhaps content for promotional videos is Global Bioimaging put out an added value document, and this came out of the 2021 virtual community meeting last September. And the idea was that having this document would be really helpful in advocating and raising awareness about the importance of imaging facilities. So the Global Bioimaging Executive Board came up with this document, and it's available on the Global Bioimaging webpage, and the link is also on the slide here. And the document is broken down on the added value for different stakeholders. So it also can get you thinking about who your stakeholders are and sort of what aspects of your facility and your work would resonate with them. So the first category is scientists, and I'm just highlighting a couple of points in each category, but the document is much more extensive. So for scientists, they get access to infrastructure and expertise, and they get quality training and education from imaging platforms. The imaging scientists and core facility staff get to work on diverse projects, and they get to network with the global imaging community. Manufacturing of imaging instrumentation, they have direct contact with a really diverse user base, so they can see the applications of their technologies as well as maybe some limitations that could be addressed in future renditions of the equipment. And they should have optimal installation and operation of the infrastructure because they have the expert imaging scientists running the systems. And then for national decision makers and funders, they can have equitable access to all researchers. So in terms of EDI or equity, diversity, and inclusion, one of the really nice aspects of imaging facilities is they're normally open to all researchers. So it doesn't matter whether you're a big established lab or a lab just getting started, you all have access to the same infrastructure and expertise. It also gives a quick start for early career researchers, so while they're setting up their labs and getting their own equipment and things in their own facilities or in their own research labs, they can work in the facility and get their research going once they arrive at the institution. And it should extend the life of the advanced infrastructure if it's properly maintained and quality controlled in the facility. Next slide. So we're going to spend a fair bit of time over the next section of the workshop talking about these two key aspects of measuring impact, which is knowing and aligning with the vision, mission, and values of the imaging core facility, and also with the vision, mission, and values of the stakeholders. So it's important that you know your own vision, mission, and values for your own facility. And some facilities may have a vision statement or a mission statement, and some may not. So this is something worth thinking about. And the indicators you measure and how you report them need to be aligned with this vision, mission, and value. For example, an institutional facility that doesn't allow outside users would not measure the number of external labs using the imaging core facility. It just wouldn't make sense. But they may want to know the percentage of internal labs that are using the facility so that the institutional leadership, for instance, would know how relevant the facility is to their researchers. In turn, if you were directing a Nikon imaging facility, counting the number of home-built microscopes may not be very relevant, but Nikon might be very interested in the number of external labs using the facility. So in this case, they may want to see the broader impact on the local imaging community or maybe a national and international imaging community. And then in turn, it's important to know the vision, mission, and values of your stakeholders. And then the indicators you measure and how to report them need to be aligned with their interests. So again, for an example, if you were getting funded by a cancer foundation, they may not actually be interested in the number of students you've trained in the facility, but they would be very interested in the number of new therapeutic targets that were identified. But if you had a federal government funder, they would probably be interested in the number of students that were trained in the facility. And they may also be interested in the types of jobs that these students get after graduation, and if those jobs were related to the skills that they learned in the facility. So you can see that, the same metric may or may not be relevant depending on the mission and vision of the facility as well as the stakeholders. Next slide. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms now for about 20 minutes. And we'd like to hear from you about who your key stakeholders are, what key performance indicators and socioeconomic indicators do you think they would relate to? What are some of your successes in your facility, and what are some of the roadblocks that are holding the facility back? As with last week, we'd like to ask for a note taker and somebody to report back for each group. And there's a link here to the Google document for session 2. So if you can scroll to your breakout room number and for the note takers to put the notes there. And then we'll come back to the main session and report back for about 10 minutes after that.